Welcome to Tonight with Zachary Khan. Tonight we have a very special guest for you. We'd like to welcome you into the show today. Normally I'd introduce you, but you've stated you prefer to remain unnamed, so we won't be doing that today. Your televised appearance has been greatly anticipated. I've actually been pretty excited that you've come here today. You are at the forefront of a movement that has been spearheading what's being referred to as total aniconism. I've also heard people who accuse you of being an extremist or a fanatic. Maybe we should start there?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the omittance of anonymity is more of a courtesy than a requirement, but I do still appreciate it. So, in regards to the whole idea of an iconism, me being an extremist, I mean, I don't deny extremism. I grew up in the West and I saw things there. I bore witness and was changed. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of your viewers lying languid in some high rise hub in Guri or some other place will see me as a fanatic. And I'll say to them, you haven't seen what I saw. And if you had, I think you'd be more fearful of images too. I won't really get into it too much here, but just to kind of spark the dark imaginations of our viewers, I'll say that some of the most really egregious things I saw consisted of the grossest negligence of parental responsibilities.
I think you're referring to scenes from non-class countries. Some of our viewers, I'm sure, have seen or heard reports from there. But for our younger viewers, I think it would be good to do a little rehash of some of the events that preceded the first and second iconoclasms here in the East to kind of frame our further discussion. Do you want to, or should I?
No, go ahead.
So, way back at the turn of the millennium was where the seeds of the whole downfall of Western global hegemony were planted when personal computer ownership sort of became the norm. The seed sprouted in the 20s and 30s with the extreme advances being made in display and 3D animation technologies. This, coupled with data aggregation, made it possible for extremely satisfying content to be
Yeah, and
produced.
while the idea of doom scrolling seemed really poignant in the early 20s, that turned out to be naught but a foreshadowing of the extent to which screens became like traps, able to keep the human hunched, face illuminated solely by that blue tone glare. This would, to someone not embroiled in that sea of images, appear almost as a form of veneration or worship. And so, through the beginning of the 30s, we saw a marked decline in productivity in the West. This, of course, put a serious damper on economic growth, geopolitical ambition, and the ability to present an erect projection of power. I think the image of Tel Hammeh being overrun by those youths and looters while that American sentry is sitting slack-jawed in front of a pad with what appears to be some sort of hentai is probably the most iconic image of this rapid sliding down the geopolitical power scales of pretty much all the countries of the West. Displaying such flaccidity in defensive posture, it obviously didn't take long for all the theist second-rate powers to kind of band together and swoop in and take over oil fields and airstrips and missile defense silos all the way from Gibraltar to the South China Sea.
It's close to what I was going to say. But how was it for you growing up in the West?
Yeah, I mean, for someone who'd grown up with 4chan and Reddit and Instagram on my phone, who would browse on my laptop and then switch to a smaller screen for a sort of consuming de-escalation before truly going to bed, that I had infinite amounts of pornography and movie clips and high-level esports content available to me. And I reached this sort of point of neural saturation where this immersion into images took such complete a hold of me as any other addiction. I became totally engrossed. My lifestyle completely revolved around the consumption of content. And I could see that the same thing was happening all around me. And I think that was my sort of breaking point where I realized that I needed to wrest myself and my tattered attention span away from this enthralling grip of images. I think this wider societal collapse became really evident to everyone in the early 30s when animation and in particular eye tracking software reached that certain level of sophistication. And I think even on this show, enough has been discussed on the geopolitical consequences of this, how it enabled those select few underdeveloped but devout nations to kind of wrestle hegemony from the former air-raid powers. But that was what set the ground for the devotional aniconism, for which I am an extreme proponent on your show here today. So I mean, the reaction from the class nations here in the East was a natural one, but I think for me, for us, the danger looms still. So we want to push further. That's true, further than
Okay.
most people. And I mean, I don't reject these accusations of fundamentalism. I think a lot of people misunderstand the true insights of the prophets, their encounters with the divine. Those we do still consider through the lens of modern neuropsychology as sort of personal hallucinations or psychotic episodes. The
So what you're
glory
trying
of
to
God
say.
is metaphor. I mean,
Okay.
the abhorrence towards idolatry is truly prophetic exactly because images would take on such a great role within the many generations that followed. The great prophets we simply view as the most conducive vehicles through which these policies against representational content can be disseminated to the normies. I'm not a prophet. I'm not psychotic or in communion with the divine. I too acknowledge the commerce of damp bodies on the dance floor as a form of worship. It's really important for us not to become misunderstood. We're not Puritans. We're not trying for some bleak anhedonic existence, but we do fear the power of images. For us, hell, even drugs we find to be less dangerous and more true than images. Drugs force a confrontation, psychedelics with the self, and stimulants, etc., with the kind of hollowness of partying at the end of the night when you're sitting in the kitchen and everyone else is enthusiastically engaged in the most inane conversations. It goes all the way back, this ensorcellation by images, to like pre-behavioral modernity, possibly even pre-sapiens. I mean, tell me, can you look at those caves in Lascaux and not have your heart flutter at the jejune plumpness of those deers and bears and bulls? Those drawings attest more truly the animal than any modern rendering could. This, I think, illustrates the power of images well. Even in Genesis, the first animare, breathing life into Adam and Eve, after they've put perfect tooth marks on that apple, sort of ascended from childlike ape dolls, become human, become sapient. Knowledge is the idea of things. To see not just shapes in wood, not just the planes and armrests and legs of a chair, but to see behind that chair all other chairs. To see the chair merely as sort of a connotative holotype for the Platonic chair. It's this sort of ideation that all things are mere vestiges of a much richer ontological posteriority. And I think the image trap, as such, has always been there, entrenched in our perceptual faculties.
All right. Well, that was an interesting, if not slightly rambling monologue. I do want to talk to you about your opinion on broadcast television. But first, I have to ask you, what's with the mask and the whole outfit?
Yeah, I guess we'd have to get here at some point, the fact of my nakedness. What's that old saying? The clothes make the man. So identity as projected image is tied to what we wear. It becomes a bit statement, of course, but the body cannot lie like the face can, I feel. Even bodybuilders, even if they're on steroids, there's a truth and a dedication evident in that self-chiseled facade. But I think faces are different. And although great truths can be revealed in the sort of subtle twitchings of the mimetic muscles, there are those who can control the face, who can make it a false mirror of their soul, who can deceive and seduce. And so, especially as a leader, to like preemptively abdicate myself from demagogy, I choose to wear the mask. And so do most of my followers.
don't you think this becomes performative to the point of ridiculousness? Don't you think that you might be construed as offensive? Because to me, you seem like a caricature, sort of Western colonialist depiction of a savage from sub-Saharan Africa or Polynesia. How do you honestly expect anyone to take you seriously when you present yourself like this?
I mean, I appreciate the vitriol, but these accusations of racism are honestly getting a bit tired. The fact that your connotative apparatus connects the ornaments I choose with these places makes me think that you're the one who's infected with this Western colonialist worldview. I mean, looking like this is not confined by locality, but rather temporality. Look at the finds in Kutulia cave graves, or in Tel Hameh, or even some of the more recent finds in Halmstad. I mean, when our movement started, we were being called Luddites. We were being kind of lumped in with the rest of the dreadlock-bearing anarcho-primitivists. So I chose this performative gesture of being myself an image of pre-image man.
Okay, well, let's try to get back on track. We just have to touch on broadcast television. Isn't it a bit contradictory for someone like you to appear on broadcast?
I mean, yeah, of course it is. And of course, our movement view broadcast television not without skepticism. We do, however, believe that these kinds of shows, live disseminated shows without video editing, allow our message to be propagated, that the edification of the normie masses and the consumers who may be streaming this from their dilapidated apartments is made possible. For us, I think that the true danger looms in the representational art forms, in animation, in stories, in O-streams and so forth, which allow editing whereby the human hand makes mockery of that which the Musawwir hath wrought. Just a sec.
Wow. Sorry. Really surprises me. You're positively plastered in foundation. How do you expect anyone to take you seriously? Didn't you just have a whole tirade about how you do not want to present too seductive an image? You're ridiculous. I thought we were going to have a serious discussion about this movement that you represent, which is like the most serious, if not, which is the most serious of the non-parliamentarian political movements of our day. I see you're just a clown.
Oh, my dear host, what purview can exist which encompasses both the perfect and the wretched? We may exist in a personal instantiation, a spatial, flesh-formed, sweaty one, you and I, but that one is infinitely outnumbered by phantom projections. At this moment, the broadcast spectre of me, of you, of my right side and your left are far more real than what is sitting here, breathing, occupying space, being palpably annoyed at what was supposed to be sort of a meme tier guest. I am at this moment far more image than man. The foundation is there for a reason. We both are not just persons, but apparitional ambassadors of ideology. By property of transference, then, is the idea imaged by the man. Why, then, do you think I hide beauty under a hideous surface, man?
You're off the rails. Stand it. Get out of here! I'm not here to play these silly little games, you know. I apologize to all our viewers. This is a broadcast travesty. I appeal with heartfelt sincerity that the Broadcasting Council not let this cast too ghastly a pallor of what we've been trying to do here for a long time, and the good work we've accomplished with your guidance.
Appealing to some censoring authority for visual glasnost. It's you who's not serious. He's the one who, above all else, is trapped in his own maze of mirrors. Do you really think we haven't looked into your past? You present yourself as if you're just west of the line the judges and censors are comfortable with. But what we found